Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping into a really big question, sparked by some interesting excerpts we've looked at.
Yeah, this idea of free choice. Do we actually have it?
Or are we, just following some kind of script? The source hints that maybe believing we don't have free will comes from feeling like, oh, like part of something much bigger.
Exactly. Or maybe like being a character in a dream. It's a fascinating perspective.
Okay, so our goal here is to sort of unpack that. Why would someone feel that way? What leads to doubting your own free will?
Let's start with that first point from the text. This feeling that reality itself is acting through you.
Right. What does that actually feel like? Like you're just a puppet.
Kind of. It's this sense that maybe your actions aren't entirely your own. If you feel like you're just a vessel, like a conduit for some larger force.
Then your personal choices start to seem less significant, or maybe even illusory.
Precisely. The idea of making a truly independent choice gets murky if you feel reality's, doing the choosing for you or through you.
And then there's the dream analogy. That one really hits home, doesn't it?
It does. If you feel like a character in someone else's dream, well, that fundamentally undermines your sense of control, your agency.
Yeah, because the dreamer is in charge, not the character.
Typically, yes. It suggests there might be some external consciousness or force scripting our perceived choices. Where does our own will fit into that picture?
But then the text adds this interesting layer. It says you can't really be sure you lack free choice until you fully understand yourself.
That's crucial.
What does that mean, though, to see clearly and wholly what their self is and what their self thinks? What parts of self are we talking about?
Well, it seems to point towards deep self-awareness, understanding your motivations, your biases, your core beliefs, even the origin of your thoughts.
Okay.
Without that kind of radical self-knowledge, how can you tell if a choice comes from you or from some external influence or even just ingrained habit?
That makes sense. Then it gets even deeper, this idea of an entity that activates the self.
Right, and potentially a first self that activates everything.
Whoa. Okay, so that sounds like layers, like a
Yeah.
hierarchy of activation. What does that do to the idea of free will?
It definitely complicates it. It suggests our self, the thing making choices, might itself be influenced or even initiated by something else?
So maybe not direct control, but like ripples in a pond. The first splash affects everything after.
That's a good way to put it. It could be a universal consciousness, or maybe just the fundamental laws of physics, or perhaps something internal we just don't grasp yet. It raises questions about the ultimate source of our actions.
But just when you think it's leaning towards determinism, the text throws in that curveball.
Yeah. The possibility that the character in the dream.
Might actually be responsible for its own destiny, or even somehow be making the dreamer dream. How does that work?
It's counterintuitive, right? But it's a really important point. It suggests agency might exist even within what seems like a fixed system.
So maybe the character's choices influence the dream itself. It's not just a one-way street.
Perhaps. It blurs those lines between the determined and the free. It opens the door to the idea that free will could operate in ways we don't immediately recognize, even within constraints.
So where does that leave us? The text seems to conclude that, well, we can't be certain we lack free choice.
Not without that complete understanding, though.
Understanding who we are, what activates us, and whether those activating forces are separate from us or part of us.
Exactly. The core takeaway seems to be that this feeling, this doubt about free will, often comes from a certain way of looking at reality and the self, but absolute certainty. That requires knowing yourself inside and out.
Which is, a lifelong project.
Absolutely. The source really encourages that ongoing search, that questioning about who we are and how much control we really have. It keeps the question alive.
So the deep dive continues, in a way.
It does. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Think about those times you feel most in control and then the times you feel least in control. What's going on there?
What beliefs about yourself or about reality might be shaping those feelings?
Yeah. It's definitely something worth mulling over.